Yesterday, the Washington Post published an article saying that President Trump is considering shutting down some of America's bases in the Persian Gulf. And while to the smooth brains, this may look like a defeat, Iran wins. And what it actually is very smart. And the reason why is because we have an obscene number of bases in the Gulf and get very little out of it. Certainly, there's quite a bit of oil that flows out of it, but only 20% of the world's supply, and we only get a small, teeny fraction of that. So what this is world police. Effectively, this is just us controlling and providing peace and stability in this region when the rest of the Arabs should have been doing this for themselves. You can see the crazy number of U.S. bases. Dozens of U.S. Air Force, naval facilities, outposts, radar facilities. All of these, by the way, exposed all the time to terrorist attacks, not just from Iran, but from a ton of different things, ISIS and so on. But also exposed to the new style of warfare that's very dangerous and very scary. Drone swarms, satellites, EMPs, and so on. It's like something that you really got to think about is how are we going to fight wars now? And what we're learning in Ukraine is that it's all going to be unmanned. It's all going to be autonomous. And so do we have the need for these extremely expensive bases, and the most expensive bases, by the way, which are, well, human lives? Because these are the bases right here in Jordan, this base in particular. Mufwa Salti is what this base is named. This is where 11 soldiers died with an Iranian ballistic missile that belligerently was fired into that base, and they're getting better at firing these missiles. That's just a matter of fact. And now Iran is threatening to fire more missiles at American bases in Europe. Iran eyes military targets in Europe if Donald Trump escalates war. Proposals to retaliate against the U.S. beyond the Middle East comes as Tehran sees renewed conflict as inevitable. Okay. Well, there are dozens of American bases in Europe. The biggest American bases, of course, in the world are actually in Europe, off of our shores. Iran is weighed attacking U.S. military targets in Europe should Donald Trump escalate the war. According to the people close to the regime, Tehran considers its options to increase the stakes of the conflict. Two regime insiders told the Financial Times that Iranian forces have assessed striking U.S. assets in southeastern European countries, such as Bulgaria. Last month approved the use of its Air Force base for U.S. refueling. One of the insiders added that Cyprus, where British Air Base was struck by a drone in March, was also among potential targets for retaliation for a U.S. offensive. The insiders said that Iranian forces have separately examined attacking subsea fiber optic cables in the Strait of Hormuz in the event of escalation, so they'd cut off their own internet. Genius. The threats reflect the defiant mood of Tehran. Many within the regime increasingly see a resumption of the war as a matter of time, not when. Well, here's what I would argue. First off, does Iran have the capacity to hit these targets? Their regional range only would be 2,000 miles, right? That's the high. Iran's most advanced ballistic cruise missiles have a maximum range of 2,000 miles. These medium and intermediate range systems could technically hit Eastern Europe. Now, here's a couple of bad ideas for Iran and why, while this sounds like a lot of bluster, you can see here at these sort of range, Iran's range is 2,000 miles. So you could see here Moscow here in Eastern Europe. A couple things. You fire a missile, the farther you fire it, the more there are chances of interceptors, which have gotten very good to intercept the missile. So that's the first thing. The longer the missile's in the air, the easier it would be to be intercepted from space or land, right, or air. Number two, you hit Europe with a missile, you're not hitting an American base, you're hitting Europe. You're going to have a NATO problem. You're going to have an Article 5 problem where all of Europe is then going to say, you bombed us, we're going to declare war against you. And then all of Europe turns and declares war against Iran. Then you have a real problem. But really, all of this is just bluster. Iran isn't winning the war. That is a lie. America is winning the war. It's painful, but it's true. And it's admitted not by just President Trump on Truth Social, but by CNN and by all the people who are truly monitoring these things. The last thing they want is all of NATO to be turned against them. NATO prepared to defend allies from any Iranian threat, says official. There are lots of American bases, again, in Europe. Look at the number of bases. I mean, target-rich environment, right? Tens of thousands, probably 100,000 soldiers deployed across Europe, right? And 40,000 in Germany alone. Yo. So let me give you a little explainer as to why Iran is being so belligerent right now and how desperate they truly are. This is the Chinese stock market. The Chinese stock market is a total and complete psychotic bloodbath death spiral right now. 3 trillion yen was just wiped clean in under a day from the market. The real problem for Iran right now is that the American military is choking off their only source of income. Iran's Republic's oil lifeline to China is being choked, and signs of panic are beginning to emerge in the regime. China buys 90% of Iran's exported oil, making it not simply the regime's biggest customer, but its only buyer capable of absorbing exports at scale. Dependency is now becoming a major vulnerability. Iran oil flows to China have fallen dramatically because they can't get their oil out because there's a naval blockade. Sources inside Iran say the U.S. blockade is not only choking the oil revenue, but disrupting China-bound supply chains. The danger for the Islamic Republic is cascading. Fewer oil shipments mean fewer dollars, mounting storage pressure, and production cuts, growing problems with its most critical customer. China is becoming a lifeline, isolated Islamic regime, and now that lifeline is becoming a choke point. Look at this from reporters inside of Iran, specialists. Sources inside Iran tell me U.S. blockade is starting to have a serious impact, and I'm told not only choking Iranian oil sales, but that disruption in its supply chain is beginning to cause major frictions with China. Xi Jinping is set to go to America next month. Iran says the United States has not released any of our frozen assets. Please give us money. Look at that. And they're planning. They say that they're gonna bomb our bases in Europe. Bull. This is not true. I mean, Iran can't even get through a oil blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, they don't control anymore. Iran has lost control of the Strait of Hormuz. 10 million barrels a day the Trump administration is taking out of the Strait of Hormuz. Look at this. 10 million barrels a day. Energy Secretary Chris Wright last week said the combined oil transits through the strait rerouted the waterway totaled 15 million barrels a day. Correction there. Thank you. Much closer to the 20 million barrel average from before the war. And then what happens next? Well, there's even further problems for Iran, which is that the American bases are still there, still operational. There are major pipelines going around the Strait of Hormuz. They can no longer use it as a choke point. The vast majority of the oil flow is going to flow out through a pipeline instead of in a boat that Iran could control. And then also Venezuela has become the number one oil trader with America. 50% of Venezuela's oil production goes to America now. With how high U.S. oil production is, on top of getting so much Venezuelan oil and then more Canadian oil, as Donald Trump announces the Keystone XL pipeline, the U.S. is more or less insulated from the global oil market, as you can see here. Venezuela has 900 years of oil. Their oil reserves could last 900 years. Got it. And it's ours now. Very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. And it doesn't put Iran in the driver's seat. The opposite. It puts Iran in the beggar's seat. Somebody get these beggars out of here. You know what I mean? HBoy Benny, like, share, and subscribe.